Well, welcome to Active and Healthy in the Couve. I am certified personal trainer Nick Medlock. And with me, as always, is Trent Corey, doctor of physical therapy. And we're going to have a fun discussion today. Well, I always say a fun discussion, but I enjoy it so much that it's fun for me to talk about. But it's a serious topic. It's part two of what we were talking about last time, stress and trauma, anxiety, and things like that. And so we're distinguishing between what stress is and what trauma is. And so last time we really talked about stress, and we can't avoid stress. And we talked about being able to fight a tiger, so to speak. You get startled by a tiger, you run away, and then you recover after you survive, and your body does all of these things. So you can't live without that kind of stress in life. But I'm going to talk about trauma today as what I like to call the tiger that doesn't go away. So kind of like, the event happens and then you survive the event, but that event keeps cycling over and over and over in your brain space and then in your body space. Would you like that analogy also?
Yeah, I mean, you gotta talk about what's actually kind of getting hung up in that repetitive mind. That we kind of have these several thoughts a day, and a lot of times they're negative, and they kind of relive these moments. Super important for us to be connected to our present moment, but a lot of people get hung back into old patterns of what happened, and there's so many bad things that happen. We all have things that happen in our lives, and that are tough to let go of. And so I'm looking forward to this discussion of letting us kind of understand that those things are okay and that there's people to help with that. And it definitely affects just a lot of times we're just talking about moving and being active and eating well and that kind of stuff. But
Yeah.
it's really super important for us to understand what's happening in our mind and how we can have the resources and the ability to be able to handle that and find ways to release the past, to be more present, and to help each other to grow and to live and be healthier and just be there for each other. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I love that, especially the being there for each other. That's kind of why we went into what we do.
Mhm.
um, but just to give some context, I'm not a therapist of psychology, and neither are you. But I think one of the reasons it's important for people like us to talk about this is for me in particular, I've got particular things that I do that help people, but that can also set off a traumatic trigger response in somebody's body. So I, as a personal trainer, have to be aware of those things and see the symptoms and be able to refer out to special therapists and have connections that I can help people with. And then notice the difference between somebody just having a regular stress response in their life and having like a traumatic, like PTSD or something other like that. So that, because I do a lot of breath work. And sometimes breath work can trigger a trauma response in somebody where they go back into, especially like shallow breathing, if we're doing fast, something like that. So I have to know a lot of these symptoms and know when to back off or in the moment, help somebody if it induces like a panic attack, which has happened in my line of work. So I want to distinguish between that. So I'm just going to read a little bit of some things so that we can parse out what stress and trauma is. And I won't get too much into the weeds. But stress, by definition, could be a normal reaction to challenges like job loss, exams, finances, things like that. All that can create different raises in our hormones like cortisol and stress hormones that we've talked about. Stress can be positive too. Roller coasters are fun, right? So it's a fun thing, but it can be scary. Depends on your perspective. Or it could be negative. The same event could be positive or negative. It's all about that a lot of the internal reactions, and it's not that if you have a bad reaction, you're a bad mental thing. It's just how we respond, and we respond differently because of different contexts of our life. Um, but I'm going to define trauma through these terms of like a long-term response to a situation that's beyond like everyday stress. So, and it may not even come out as you knowing that you've had trauma. It may appear, maybe in your 30s, 40s. It could be appearing shortly after an event, like maybe even an accident. You may not present with the fear and anxiety and traumatic response until later. Um, so These events can be caused by extreme shock, stress, and like natural disasters, war, assault on your body. It can be triggered by how you view yourselves. It can change the way you view yourselves also, and how you view others in the world. That all the trauma can change the way that you view things, and the reason I think that that's important, based off of everything we've ever talked about, is our thoughts can help create a disbalance of our hormones, like through cortisol and things like that. So your thoughts can actually really begin this emotional and chemical chain reaction in your body. And that can lead to mental health conditions like acute stress disorder or post-traumatic stress disorder. And the reason I want to bring that up is if I want to talk about the symptoms, and if you have people that you see that have these symptoms, or if you have them yourself, then you can kind of go, hey, maybe I need to talk to somebody, or maybe you can talk to somebody about helping find something like that. Not to diagnose, because we can never diagnose anything, but it's always kind of like, hey, this may be a challenge for you because of X, Y, or Z. So some of these symptoms of trauma could be nightmares, flashbacks of a certain event, hypervigilance, like you just got to keep going no matter what, different things like that. Difficulty trusting others, alcohol and drug misuse. And I'm going to stop for that for a second, because I want to discuss in my nutrition, when I'm talking about different types of things health related, a lot of times certain diseases, health wise, like fertility sometimes, and then definite eating disorders come from early childhood trauma. So I deal sometimes with very obese people. And so some of the time, the first thing I always say is, it's not your fault. Because I love that. I've read so many books that just start chapter one, it's not your fault. Because there's so many things in our past that have led us up to this. So when you start relieving yourself of the guilt and recognizing that maybe there's some kind of trauma abuse in your past that has led you to this, you recognize that, and then you can get. So I'm always encouraging people to seek therapy for that kind of a thing. But it can also lead to food addiction as well, not just alcohol and drug misuse.
Mhm.
Um, difficult sleeping, difficulty sleeping. So like if you're like constantly waking up, 3 o'clock in the morning, can't go back to bed, that could be a symptom. Burnout at work, angry outbursts, chronic fatigue, and things like that. So that's when you start to see symptoms like that in yourself or in other people, then you can kind of behave differently with compassion and know that maybe it's not just anxiety. Maybe it's not just a bad mood. Maybe it's they're remembering and reliving this tiger chasing them, and I deal with a lot of people as I'm walking down the streets of Vancouver who are very, very mentally ill, and homeless, and you see them like yelling at themselves, and they're not yelling at you, but they're arguing, and I heard somebody once just have this full on argument. I actually thought it was two people, and then I came upon them, and it was one person. They're rehashing some argument that they had in childhood. So it's like you start to see people in their situations, and you can't help but have compassion and want to help. And sometimes you just don't have the means to do that. But with the means that you have, um, uh, in your position, in my position, we can refer out to people who are able to. So that's kind of what I wanted to do in this video, just discuss this topic, and then at the end have resources and books. So
Yeah.
two books before we start to talk more about it is The Body Keeps the Score is a great book, talking about the relationship with how your body deals with trauma. And then I'm going to blank on this one. I should have written it down. The Myth of Normal is another one. So there's really, really good books out there. Those are just two that are on my top 40. but but yeah, so let's go back and forth now that we've kind of got like some definitions and categories and things.
Yeah, I think it's great, Nick. Thanks for talking about that. I mean, these are symptoms and things that we got to be looking out for, and that, people have a lot of things that go on that we don't have any clue what's happening. We all live very full lives, and, we don't want to be really, broadcasting or sharing any of this, right? It's kind of like We just want to let people know that it's okay. We all have things that have happened in our lives, and to think that we ever have a complete unique experience to what other people are. I think that is actually helpful to understand that we everybody's had some sort of trauma. It may not have been your story, but like, if you've had a case of, a violent, a violent past of being abused, or something traumatic really badly, badly affecting you, you were raped or whatever happened. I mean, just terrible things have happened to people, but like to take solace in the fact that that has happened to other people, and just to understand that people have been able to move beyond that and to live amazing, well-meaning lives to help others, to become like they've actually used that as a thing that, or to become a better person and to help others in that situation. Or you think of those who were in the concentration camps, and they lost their whole family, and then they you think back, I've actually heard this said by some prisoners who said, I actually am grateful for that experience. It's hard to say. I mean, obviously they would rather have it been some other way, but to understand that, things that happen in our lives, sometimes they're just kind of random. They're not like, but a lot of times they can be happening for us and not just to us. I think that's a good way to frame it. It's hard, you say, oh, that's, you don't know my story. I mean, I've had things too, but like, maybe nothing so like deep and dark and severe, but like we all have certain things, and that it might be just easier for me to say, but when people have these things, I want to make sure that people understand that there's ways to get out of it. The more we can kind of connect to being, how we can use those things for positive, and understand that that is a good thing. We can make and reframe that. I think when you have these things that are like they're uncomfortable to deal with, but like, can we also like in the moment realize what we can do to help another person right now? And so that's where I kind of go with it. And I think you were saying about thoughts, and then I was thinking about thoughts with emotion. So
Yeah.
like, it isn't just like the repetitive, like they say like 90, I don't know where the quote, who counts the thoughts of 40, 50, 60,000 thoughts a day, and how they say most of the thoughts are negative, but also like the charge of the thoughts
Hmm.
and the emotion that's tied to it, and like how strongly negative it can be, and how much, because a lot of people are like, yeah, I want to do this and I'm excited about this, and then all of a sudden you're like, no, you can't, you are terrible, like, but it's like strong negative that just comes from the deep. Understanding that we just need to say that that's just a thought in the sky, and you just thank it for being here and just welcome it and then let it go. And that oftentimes those thoughts are just completely not true. And I think a lot of times we keep giving these thoughts and over in our head, and since we hear them more and more often, and they become stronger and stronger if we allow it to be, if we don't scratch the record of the old pattern, then those get to the feeling like they are the truth. And a lot of times they are not the truth. And, or I love what you said about it's not your fault. I mean, a lot of us get to the thought, especially kids, your parents break up, and, you take that on your own and say, that was my fault. I did that. Like, there's
Yeah.
there's no reason for you to think that that ever but like, but for you it's as true as the sky is blue or whatever, right? So and so it's important for us to look at those things. Dr. Amen, I don't know if you know him. He's the change your brain, change your body, or
Oh, yeah.
change your
Yeah.
brain, change your life. He talks about these ants and automatic negative thoughts, and to really just put them up for inquiry and just thinking like, is that absolutely true? And how is, and that's another work, Byron Katie's work with the loving what is, going over a thought that's causing you suffering and realizing, is this thought true? And then the next question is, how can you absolutely know that it's true? And you're like, "Oh, actually, that's not really true all the time," and then you go through it and you're actually putting these thoughts up for inquiry, And that helps us to kind of process things, something that can be done on your own in a safe environment, and also just to be comfortable with you in the moment, that right here and now, especially when you get into breath work, to
Mhm.
create the safe space is just like, yeah, I mean, I can go into the past and oh my gosh, it's terrible, but like right now, like as long as there's not like, the Blitzkrieg out, trying to bomb us outside or whatever. We all have some things but like, can I be in a place right now comfortably with somebody and be able to breathe? Am I okay right now? And just be there. Just be like, I'm here. I'm here. I'm here. I'm in now. I'm okay. And
Yeah.
like right now, I'm okay. And that's all we ever have anyway. We only ever have the present moment. And so, there's so many people who can talk you through these things. But I found these little helpful things that you can get on audios or books or that kind of thing
Yeah.
can help you at least get the framing in your mind to
Yeah.
be a little bit more in a calm space
Yeah.
and be able to handle what you can do. We cannot. The past is over. It can't be changed, but how we determine that to go forward is something we can impact. And so it's a lot of times tough to get over the hump for some, and we just need to keep encouraging and then get the help that people need, the resources that they need.
Well, I love what you were talking about, especially using your experiences. I call it triumph over trauma, or sorry, turning trauma into triumph. Because after you've moved through that experience, we determine the meaning of it based off of what we can do with it, right? We can say that it was all meant for something, and we can find rejoice or despair either way. But I think true meaning comes from using that to help others, as you were saying, aiding. But I do want to take an aside for a second. In some people I've seen do read a lot of those books and do a lot of the meditations, join different meditation groups or styles of breath work and self-help and things, and they just keep having that tiger that won't go away. And so if that's something that resonates with somebody, like something will trigger into this like a trigger storm where you're just constantly inundated and going back into like PTSD in soldiers or things like that. There are great therapies out there, like EMDR, with these movements that really change the neurological patterns. But then you have to be with somebody, that's not me or you, to go into those, to know how to set it up to begin with, to take you back to that place, so that you know that you're safe and coached and guided, and then how to take you back to being grounded in your body so that you don't escape into that whirlwind of recurring trauma that PTSD is. And there's other, forms of therapy besides that. Family systems therapy is really cool. Cognitive behavioral therapy, and there's many, many others. But somatic therapy is really, I've seen a difference in some people that I know that have just done talk therapy and work. Uh, they were getting like the understanding in their head, but they weren't connecting it with their full body, like the head and the heart are separated. Um, and then you have a somatic therapist that works with the body and not as much talking and things like, and that's been beneficial for some people. So I think just being aware, I call it trauma informed because I know that's the new catchphrase right now. But the more we as physical therapists and personal trainers are just aware of these things and can talk to that situation to guide and steer to a referral to somebody, I think the more we truly can help people. And then especially having all those tools for stress and anxiety, for teaching, it can aid in regular stress and aid maybe in the moment when I'm doing a slam ball and then somebody goes into a panic attack kind of a thing, because I'm not going to abandon, say you need to go to a psychotherapist in the moment. I'm going to be there to care and make sure that somebody's safe, which, it doesn't happen often, but it has happened before. So, we want to know those traits, and we want to know that, that spin out is a real thing.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, it's great. I mean, you gave a lot of good resources and ways to go about it. And everybody's got to find something that works. But yeah, I think sometimes, like you said, like meditation groups and all this, it comes to the point where people get overwhelmed with trying to keep seeking.
Yeah,
And we realize like it comes just as simple as just being here and now and, releasing it. And it can happen in a split second if you allow it to be and you have the right folks to do it. But like EMDR you mentioned, but the tapping technique, EFT, I
tapping. Yeah,
I do that all the time. And like what's great, I can do that with somebody and I don't have to go into their whole story. Actually, a
right.
lot of times to keep going and reliving the story continues to reinforce that
Yeah,
thing as something that's impactful. It's almost just better just be like, okay, that trauma, we put it in a box and I'm going to put that in the Pacific Ocean or put it on the moon. And we know like we don't need to go and talk about it. Let's just tap about it. And then I'm going to tap on my points on my pace
mhm,
and work on these points. And then as I go through that, then I can blow up the thing in the past, or, I can bring something bright and shiny in the front, that is uplifting about it, or, that kind of thing. So
yeah,
I love that idea of trying to get that, um, like you said about those physical signals to get your body to get back and to really physically release it. And that's why with exercise, those things can really kind of work themselves out so much better. And you're never going to forget it. If it's something that's big, I mean, well, sometimes they're repressed memories from childhood. But then a lot of people, if it was something really violent or very big moment, you're not going to forget that happened, but we can always change how that means to us in the future. And so that's what's kind of interesting, how you can actually literally change your past
yeah,
based on what you kind of took from that. And so why not change that to your advantage
yeah,
versus like the other way around versus like, oh my gosh, been brought down. And I mean, it sometimes even just helps to have a good reading of several biographies of people who've gone through like I mean there's so many great people who've moved on to some amazing things in their lives. And since we are in the human condition, we have things that
yeah,
just happen that are terrible. I mean, like we talked about this last time, none of us get out of this alive.
yeah,
So to recognize that this is part of the human condition, that we are part of something much bigger, and that we can understand that, okay, other folks have been through that, that gives us that sense of like, I think when we feel isolated in it, this is my feeling on it. It's just like the more we feel like it's just me, that's when we can kind of go down this spiral because we feel like we're in a silo of our own despair. And like it's just like, no, man, we're all in this. Like we all have these terrible feelings. Like you just welcome yourself to being a freaking human being who
yeah,
going through things, and that more than likely someone has gotten past something way worse than you,
yeah,
right? I mean, like chances are, like just like I know I'll never be an Olympic gold medalist, right? Like, and even if you are an Olympic gold medalist, there's going to be someone else comes along who's better than you. Same thing with anything that we're trying to compare trauma stories. That's what I'm talking about. I'm just saying there's bad things that happen. It's okay. It's not your fault. And then can we move on and make this something that we can move on and be very functional? And, the people rely on you, the people who need you to be your best self now, that's what we need to focus on. And when you focus on that, it grows better. And I
yeah.
think that's huge, right? The more we can focus on that's going to help us more. So.
Well, I want to before we run out of time, you really excited something in me because part of the polyvagal theory, which we can't get into today, and part of some of the definitions for the PTSD and trauma is this dissociation or disconnectedness from yourself. And when we tap in like that method, the tapping method, it connects us to our body. When we find the here and now, we connect the past to the present to the future and to the eternal now, or whatever you want to call it. But it's like your mind and your body reunite. And then when you're dealing with sharing that element, that you're not alone, and you can realize that other people are experiencing similar but different things, then you've got this more intertwined connectedness. And I think the more we connect on that level, we don't feel alone, we don't feel isolated. We can get out of our heads into our bodies and then into community,
Yeah.
which ideally, the more we separate ourselves, the more we have anxiety to begin with,
Yeah.
you know. And so,
Exactly.
the more
Yeah.
we can get interconnected, the more our vagus nerve relaxes, and not that that's, the sole treatment for PTSD if you need certain therapies, but that's a big part of the disconnect of the mind and body, so to speak. So I
Right.
like that you bring that up because that's something I talk about in my yoga class a lot. Just constantly being in your body, not in your mind. Unless you go into shavasana, then it's all out there.
Right on. Yeah, for sure. I've heard stories of like someone who like in a village of the tribal village or something, if a traumatic thing happens, if they lost their child or something, one of the best things they would have them do is actually go out and care for the other kids or go do activities around the
Yeah,
with the group, right? Building and doing, working the land or just doing something like just getting yourself busy, not to bury it, but just to kind of feel like, oh, you're doing something to help people. And just that power of just when you do something, giving, it creates a better healing process that you can process with them and that you can kind of tell you're interacting with these other people. And,
yeah,
we, so many great caring people out here. It's just,
yeah,
I mean, we a lot of people have just been through really bad things, and we're all in this together. And I think the more we kind of understand that, it helps us just be like, it's gonna be fine. We're gonna, it's not easy. Nobody expected it to be. We didn't know what we were signing up for when we came here, but we know
yeah,
it's hard, and we just have to, go with it together. It's gonna be
yeah.
a much powerful, more better experience for us all. So.
I love that. We're not getting out alive, but we can get through it together.
That's no doubt for sure. No doubt, Nick. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. Well, we got to wrap it up, but thank you so much, Trent. This is a topic that's near and dear to my heart, and I'm glad that we're able to discuss it. And if you have any resources or things, we can post that on our page. I'll put up all the resources that I know, and we can continue to grow that. And then, if we have any listeners that are therapists, trauma informed, or even just want to come on and talk about this subject with us, let us know. So we want to just help as many people as we can.
Yeah, absolutely, Nick. Thanks so much. Yeah, this is great. Thanks.
All right, everybody, take care. Thanks for watching the show, and pass it on to a friend. And yeah, let's see if we can get some more viewers and connected, and get some more therapists on here to talk about stress and trauma. But everybody, have a great week.
All right. Take care.